Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Joshua Barnes, coming to you live from the Firstpost studios. First, let's take a look at the headlines. 2 4-story buildings collapse in the Moroccan city of Fez, killing at least 19 people. Authorities fear that the death toll could rise further. Ethiopia's Electoral Commission announces that the parliamentary elections will be held on the 1st of June next year, despite the country still battling an armed conflict. Beijing denounces British sanctions on 2 Chinese companies, which London alleged were involved in cyber activities against Britain, saying the measures amounted to political manipulation of security issues. The Trump administration plans to order visa-exempt foreign tourists to disclose their social media histories from the last 5 years before entering the country. And Mexican lawmakers advance legislation that could establish penalties of up to 8 years in prison for selling electronic cigarettes. Hello and welcome. Our top story is from war-torn Sudan. The paramilitary RSF has taken control of the country's strategic oil field, forcing army personnel and oil workers to withdraw into neighbouring South Sudan. The RSF took control of the strategic Heglig oil field in the South Kordofan province on Monday. Social media footage showed RSF soldiers celebrating and shooting guns. Reportedly, government forces and workers were forced to leave the area on Sunday to avoid clashes that could have damaged the oil facility. The Heglig oil field is near the border with South Sudan in the South Kordofan. The region has become the epicentre of the Sudanese civil war after the RSF took control of the entire Darfur region in the west of the country in October. The RSF's seizing of the Heglig oil field is not just a blow for the Sudanese Army, but also for neighbouring South Sudan. The country held on to most of Sudan's fossil fuel deposits after seceding from it in 2011. Heglig houses the main processing facility for South Sudanese oil, which makes up much of the revenue for South Sudan's government. The Sudanese paramilitary RSF and the regular army have been at war since April 2023. The brutal civil war has killed tens of thousands of people, displaced 12 million residents, and devastated the country's infrastructure. The conflict in Sudan is one of the wars that US President Donald Trump has vowed to end. Trump's ambition to win a Nobel Peace Prize is well known. In the latest move, his administration has imposed sanctions on a network that allegedly hired Colombian fighters for Sudan's paramilitary. Washington claimed that since at least 2024, hundreds of former Colombian military personnel have travelled to Sudan to fight alongside the RSF, which the US has accused of committing genocide. However, Trump's peacemaking efforts are not proving to be of much help. Last month, the US, the UAE, Egypt and Saudi Arabia had proposed a peace plan to end the conflict. The RSF responded by saying it had accepted the plan, but soon after attacked army territory with a barrage of drone strikes. Whereas the Sudanese army chief rejected the truce proposal altogether, citing the UAE's involvement. The UAE has long been accused of funding and arming the RSF. However, the Gulf nation has denied all allegations. As the clashes between the Sudanese army and the RSF intensify, it is the civilians who continue to bear the brunt of it. And for more on this, we have with us Meki El-Maghrabi, an international affairs expert, joining us live from Cairo, Egypt. Welcome to Firstpost Africa.
Thank you, Joshua, and good to see you again.
Absolutely. Meki, does the oil field capture provide the RSF with the upper hand in this brutal civil war moving forward?
Not at all. No upper hand. Starting from the time that RSF militia started to import mercenaries, that means they don't have internal support. So after that, claiming any national cause or that they have a political project, if they have political project, they need to have some support internal. So even they don't have tribal support. So the issue of importing militia from outside Sudan, from Colombia, Ukraine, actually not imported, shipped and sponsored by UAE and sent to Sudan. And by the way, I don't use the word control because the word RSF control give you sense of governance or sense of adjusting things. But in the case of RSF, I use the word deployment. They just deploy their elements and then the mess will happen in the area.
And Meki, after failed efforts to broker a ceasefire from nations including the US, do you think this latest development could speed up international peace efforts, given that it's not just influencing the country of Sudan?
International peace efforts, or the effort to stop the militia, connected to another factor now. The Saudi Arabia efforts and the shift in the policy of United States after the meeting between the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, and Trump in the White House. Actually, now the battlefield is not just Sudan, or the battleground is not just Sudan. What is happening now is just like the 7 years war between in Europe. They have different battlegrounds in Europe, in India, in America. So what is happening now, war in Sudan is part of the war. War in Yemen is part of the war. War in Libya, and even they try to harass Algeria. So now Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Eritrea, on most of the country of the region, siding against UAE and Chad and other countries that attacking Yemen, Sudan, Libya, and others. So now we have different definition for the war in Sudan.
And Meki, to finish this discussion, of course, amid continued fighting, what does that mean for the people of Sudan who have been in the grips of this devastating war?
People of Sudan, they practice politics and they involve in wider debate in social media. And now they have chosen 13th of December movement, which is the greatest movement and demonstration will be in all the capitals of Europe and North America and in Sudan and Arab countries. People of Sudan, they have chosen now to take the street and to reject any UAE intervention and accusing UAE of being enemy of Sudan and rejecting any settlement with RSF. And that happened after a deeper and wider discussion between Sudanese activists and Sudanese friends. And things happened, the massacre of Fashir, and after that, the shift in United States position. Also, we cannot forget the article of Burhan that published in the Wall Street Journal. It was well articulated and well expressed article and reached some American friends and European friends. So people of Sudan now have chosen to take the street in 13th of December to reject any weak and evil peace effort that covered by peace efforts, but it is not peace in actual.
Yes, and we will continue to monitor all of the developments in Sudan here on First Post Africa. Meki El Maghrabi will be staying with us as we look at further developments in the continent.
Thank you.
And for our next story, we head to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where fighting is intensifying, throwing a fresh US ceasefire into doubt. Gunfire has been heard as Rwandan-backed M23 rebels pushed into the outskirts of the strategic city of Uvira. The United Nations says this new offensive has already killed 74 people, with dozens more wounded. The UN also revealed that around 200,000 people from the city have fled in recent days. Uvira is a lakeside town near the border with Burundi, a key trade and economic hub in eastern DRC. It sits in the east of Democratic Republic of Congo, which is home to substantial reserves of mineral resources. And control over this mineral-rich land has been one source of a conflict in eastern DRC for years. Fighting intensified once again at the start of this year, when the Rwandan-backed rebels seized the eastern city of Goma in January, and then Bukavu, its capital of South Kivu province. But after several diplomatic meetings on the conflict between the DRC, Rwanda and the M23 rebels, a peace deal was signed only last week, with Donald Trump present along with both leaders of Rwanda and DR Congo. The US president hailed it as a miracle.
I think you're going to see very quick and very quickly, I think you're going to see things happen. This is something that was not doable, according to a lot of people, and not only is it doable, I think it's going to be a great miracle. These two gentlemen are leaders, they're great leaders, and they're going to prove that in the coming months and years. And I think you're going to see very immediate results. I have confidence that that's what's going to happen. Thank you very much, everybody.
However, after days of fighting that has reportedly also led to the death of Burundi soldiers in DRC, the ceasefire is hanging by a thread. And amid the continued offensive from the M23 rebels, Rwanda has now hit out at DRC and Burundi for so-called violations of the agreements.
These deliberate violations of recently negotiated agreements constitute serious obstacles to peace. Violations cannot be placed on Rwanda.
As violence continues in the region, the United States and European powers have urged the M23 to immediately halt its offensive, while also urging Rwanda to remove its troops from eastern DRC. And in Washington, the US and 9 members of the International Contact Group for the Great Lakes called the renewed violence a profound concern. For now, uncertainty remains for hundreds of thousands of people who remain in Uvira. M23 rebels have urged citizens to remain in the city. And what of the peace deal, signed less than a week ago? Optimism over an end to 3 decades of war is once again dissipating. We'll bring back in Meki El-Maghrabi, an international affairs expert, joining us live once again, of course, from Cairo, Egypt. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you again, Joshua.
I want to look more broadly at this conflict. Of course, just days ago, it looked closer to ending than it has in recent months. What comes next for both sides?
First of all, I think it's okay to have USA with its global weight and heavy weight, and having Qatar mediating between the Congo and Rwanda, M23, the Kivu region. That is good, but we shall not simplify the solution and think American can happen in one day, just like Trump said. It is not a miracle, but could open a way to have a miracle, because the DRC war once called the global or the world African war, because it is a non-stop war and it's multi-party war. So having the United States pushing for the peace is not a bad thing. It's a very good thing. And by the way, in 2018, United States, and at that time, Tibur Nagy was the Assistant Secretary of the Department of State for Africa, and he pushed for the election in the Congo, and that brought the peace from 2018 up to 2023, something like that. So United States has good experience in pushing the peace in the Congo during the first administration of Trump, or the first term of Trump, and now he started to do things. But it couldn't be one-step process. We need more involvement from United States and Qatar.
Yes, and Meki, do you think that the M23 rebels will heed the warnings that have come from international players, and do you think they will stop their offensive?
We need a role for the African Union. The national players, United States, Qatar, is not enough. So there is a missing role for the African Union, and the African Union has been weakened during Moussa Faki time, but now it's better in Ali Mahmoud as the chief of the commission. But still, Rwanda once was a leader or the champion of African solution for African problems. And now Rwanda is a part in a problem. So we need more involvement for the African Union. African Union has been weakened and manipulated by Western powers for some time, and that clearly seen in dealing with the issue of Sudan, Niger, Burkina Faso, and other the suspended African nations according to intervention that coming outside from African Union. So African Union need to fix its situation and join the peace efforts, and that could be the better solution to push the peace process in the Congo.
Meki El Maghrabi, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing insights.
You're welcome.
Moving on. Tanzania's Independence Day on Tuesday unfolded amid an unusual silence. Major cities were silent. Streets were almost deserted, with no public celebrations. The reason? Tanzanian authorities cancelled all events ahead of planned anti-government protests. In Dar es Salaam, police trucks and officers on foot patrolled the streets. Roadblocks were set up near government buildings, including President Hassan's heavily guarded offices. And it was not just the capital. This was a common sight across all major cities. Markets were shuttered and public transportation came to a standstill. This with authorities fearing a repeat of October's election unrest. In an address to the nation, Tanzania's Prime Minister urged people to only leave their homes if necessary.
The government encourages everyone who is not in essential services to spend the day resting at home.
The government says funds allotted for Independence Day were redirected to repair the loss of property during that unrest. Residents say the announcement set off panic across the city, leaving many worried about their safety and livelihoods. And that concern is now spilling into public voices.
Kinatushtua sana, si kwa sababu tuna biashara zetu tumeshusha. Kwa kesho tunavyoambiwa kesho tusifungue, nao pia inatushtua. Tutawauzia kina nani biashara watu wa sport.
The fear has led to a lot of panic buying. Last week the market was in chaos. Today the scene is totally different, almost deserted.
And the fear began more than a month ago. Tanzania's October 29th elections made global headlines. President Samia Suluhu Hassan was re-elected with 98% of the vote. But it was a vote tainted with blood. Leading opposition candidates were barred from running. Demonstrators burned vehicles, gas stations, polling centres, internet services were shut down. The opposition claimed over 1,000 people were killed in 3 days. More than 2,000 people were detained. And security forces allegedly used a shoot-to-kill policy.
We've documented a number of cases of people being picked up from their homes and off the streets by plainclothes men. A number of those people were then reported by the police as having been arrested by them.
And last week, Tanzanian President Hassan justified the killing of protesters. She said it was necessary to prevent the overthrow of the government. Listen in.
What took place were not demonstrations. It was simply chaos. Were we supposed to simply watch that mob of demonstrators who were prepared to overthrow the government until they succeeded? Would that still be a functioning state? That is not how a state operates.
And the international fallout has been swift. The EU Parliament has suspended aid to Tanzania last week. The US is also reviewing relations with Tanzania over violence and speech curbs. While the African Union observers say the presidential election lacked democratic values. But inside Tanzania, President Hassan is pushing a different narrative. She posted a message on X addressing citizens. It had no mention of protests or of people who died during the October unrest. A nation's independence is meant to honour its freedom, but Tanzania now stands at a crossroads, with empty streets and the shadow of an election that saw the country's people killed. We'll keep tracking as this situation develops. And to end the show, we head to Benin. The West African nation narrowly avoided a military takeover this weekend. And now France says they helped their former colony to stop the attempted coup. French officials claim they provided intelligence, surveillance and logistical support to Benin. President Emmanuel Macron reportedly led a coordinated effort, speaking with Benin's President Patrice Talon and leaders of Nigeria and Sierra Leone. Benin is yet to release a formal statement on Macron's claims. But French officials also say intelligence was then shared with Nigeria. At Benin's request, Nigeria reportedly sent fighter jets and ground troops across the border. A Beninese official says Nigerian aircraft carried out strikes that neutralized the threat.
Nigeria then came to our aid by conducting strikes at the end of the day with its military aircraft, which immobilized some of the armored vehicles.
On Sunday, gunfire erupted across the capital, Cotonou, Benin's largest city. A group of soldiers went on state TV claiming they had removed President Talon from power. In an address to the nation, Talon said authorities acted quickly and his loyalist forces regained control within just hours.
I would like to commend the sense of duty of our army and its leaders, who have remained Republican and loyal to the homeland. This commitment and mobilization have enabled us to defeat these adventurers and avoid the worst for our country. This wrongdoing will not go unpunished.
The coup plotters claimed they acted because security in Benin is getting worse. Benin has suffered repeated terrorist attacks on their military this year. In April, 54 soldiers were killed in the northern region. JNIM and Al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorist groups claimed responsibility for the killings. And in January this year, JNIM fighters launched another attack, killing at least 28 soldiers while burning down a military base. At the same time, Benin is heading into a sensitive political moment. Voters are due to elect a new president in April. President Talon has promised to step down after a decade in power. Critics say the timing of the coup attempt just months before that vote has raised fears of further instability.
The existing relationship between Benin and this institution naturally allows the latter, while respecting the principle of sovereignty, of course, to contribute to maintaining stability, especially given the many similar events that have already occurred in West Africa.
And Sunday's events come after a wave of military takeovers in West Africa. Armies have seized power in neighbouring Niger and Burkina Faso, as well as Mali and Guinea. Only last month, soldiers in Guinea-Bissau orchestrated a coup overthrowing the civilian government. Despite a history of coups after independence in 1960, Benin has enjoyed relative calm for more than 2 decades. Talon is credited with improving economic performance, but rights groups say political tensions have grown in recent years, and opposition voices have faced increasing pressure. With an election likely just months away, analysts say Benin's challenge will be to address internal security and political grievances without opening the door to further unrest. For now, Benin's government says the situation is under control. But as Benin moves forward, questions still remain. Was Sunday's mutiny a one-off or a warning of more trouble to come? Well, that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching.